This is the Online Business Simplified podcast. Welcome. One of the major things that keeps people from building the type of life they want and the type of business they want is that they're afraid to do it. For all these preconceived notions in their head that they've made up, it's not necessarily that they can't do it. They just don't believe that they can do it. I'm going to try to help you out with that. I had a question from Jessica's healing journey. And she says, I created a new business, but I'm too scared to launch it because of my past experience. Let me ask you a question, Jessica. If you have a business and you don't want to sell, you don't want to let people know about it, how do you expect to make money? Because the being afraid thing, I'm going to cover some things. People are scared. Like people like me, coaches, they are scared to address these pain points because they think that it'll turn people off from whatever the products are that they're selling. Okay. But I like to call those things out because I want to help you out with them. So being afraid to launch, that's a normal feeling. A lot of people have a lot of ideas. It's a lot of competition out there. They compare themselves. They have the imposter syndrome. They don't believe enough in themselves. And hopefully after this, you'll realize that none of those things matter. All right. So let's talk about it. Scared to launch. First, here's the thing that people try to avoid, and it's one of the biggest components of success. You don't have enough experiences of failure. Success and failure are very, very closely tied. And I'll make an example. For every entrepreneur that you see making millions of dollars, for every entrepreneur that you see selling these programs or that you think they're making a lot of money, there are some successful ones, but some people are just lying about it. But for all the people that are truly successful, you might see their success, but you don't realize all of the other things they tried that didn't work, that all of the other things that flopped. And I like to compare this to going to the gym, right? If you see me at a restaurant, or you see me at a lounge or an upscale place, or anyone for that matter, and they look good, they got a nice body, they dress nice, and you're like, man, they're well put together. You don't see that the past week they're eating right, they're drinking their water, they're going to the gym, they're putting in the work. Everybody only sees the outside appearance. They see what's on the top. They don't see all the things that you had to go through behind the scenes. They don't see the work that you put in week by week, day by day. And that is the point. So if you're afraid to launch, just know that you will fail. And you don't have enough experiences of failure to win. You have to fail before you get to success, because nobody starts off knowing everything to do. You don't just automatically know, oh, I should do step 1, step 2 here. No, that's why we have coaching. That's why we have YouTube videos. That's why we have Google, right? That's why we have ChatGPT. People just don't know how to do things. So you don't put that pressure on yourself about being afraid to launch. Launch that business, because I'll tell you what, I missed out on so much money because I waited to launch whatever it is that I was launching, whether it was a program at the time or a book. And here's the thing. This was my first book. It was an absolute failure. Now, I had a great reason to promote it. The story behind this book is one of my friends had an altercation. I'm in the Navy. I'm a prior naval engineer. He had an altercation, went home and got shot by his wife's boyfriend. I know that sounds like a bunch of, but it was about relationship stuff that he could have solved with a simple conversation. I found this stuff out on a deployment on the cruise. They become like family, right? So I had been taking notes. I don't know why I was taking notes, but then like a few years later, when this happened, I was like, I don't want that to happen to anybody else. So I wrote the book. I finally said, you know what, I'm gonna put it out. I don't want anything to happen to anyone else that happened to my friend. And so I put this book out, right? I was excited. I learned a lot of hard lessons. I spent like $3,000 on a PR firm to do some public relations for this, to try to get me on radio stations and all of that. And it was just a failure. I wasted a lot of money. But in all of that failure, I learned a lot about marketing. I learned a lot about business, because I realized that once you write a book, you're no longer an author. You are a marketer. You're You're an entrepreneur. You're a business owner. You know, you're an advertiser. You have to do all these things and wear all these hats. So I wouldn't have, listen, I've written 4 books since then. This is one of my best-selling books, and this is like, I've gotten such good feedback on this book, and I have like 3 other business books, but I never wouldn't have got to book number 2 or book number 3 if I never had written the first book. So being afraid to launch, that's an excuse. You're going to fail, okay? So now that you know you're going to fail, you don't need to be afraid of it anymore. Launch repeatedly. That's my next tip. People will try something one time, and then if it doesn't work, they want to quit. They want to give up. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is the long game, baby. If you want to play the long game, if you want to win, you have to stay in the game. If you leave the game, if you quit, if you stop, that's when you fail. Not when you're in the game. That's not a failure. That's a learning experience. So I opened this up with saying that you don't have enough experiences of failure. All the people that are doing well in their space, they have a lot of failures. Let me give you another example. I tried to release this product called the AI Content Starter Kit or something. I believed in the product. I researched my audience's pain points. I put it out there. I didn't get a good response on it. I think people just didn't like the name because I used that same product. I coupled it with something else, changed the name to the Entrepreneur Accelerator, and people liked it. It started selling. So my point to you is just repeatedly launch that thing, adjust, launch it again until it works. Okay. So you'll fail. You don't have enough experience of failure. Launch repeatedly. Test and adjust. How do you do this? When I put out a product, I will test certain things. I might put some ads behind it. And when I'm testing something and I put out an ad, what I do is I always talk about this framework. You might have heard me say it before, the HVC framework. You can use that in your content. You can use that in advertising. But HVC, hook, value, call to action. So I'll record like 3 or 4 hooks. Then I'll record like 3 or 4 bodies, right? And then I'll record like 3 CTAs. And then I'll use hook 1, body 1, CTA 1. Hook 2, body 1, CTA 1. Hook 3, so I'll change just the hooks, leave the body and the call to action same. See which hook converts the best. Boom, now I got my high converting hook. Then now I'll switch the hook that won. I'll use that first body, same CTA. Second body, same CTA. Third body, same CTA. So I'll mix and match these so I give more opportunities to see which one of these work. And so you got to repeatedly test and adjust. Then I look at the analytics. Okay, this hook, this video with this hook. So I'll put out four ads, right? This hook was a 10% conversion rate. This one was 2%. This one was 5%. Okay, this one that converts at 10%. Now this is the one I need you to use. Now let's see which body works the best. And you test the bodies. This is how you can systematically go about seeing what works in your business. So don't be afraid to launch. All you got to do is have a strategy, all right? And then reiterate, and then repeat this process. That is the key right there. So you launch, you test, you look at the analytics and adjust, you reiterate, and then you repeat the process. Those are the 5 things you need to do. So now that you have this plan, right? And also I mentioned the HVC framework, right? Hook, value, content, and you know how to test. Go out there and make that business pop. The only way you can do it is if you take the first step. Now, if you aren't 100% satisfied with where you are in your business, you're afraid to launch, you might think you don't have the skills, you might think you don't have the time, you might think you don't have the money. If that's the case, I assure you that this class that I created, by the end of that class, you'll see why none of those things matter. And it's something that I noticed that a lot of new entrepreneurs face. It's a masterclass called The 5 Biggest Mistakes that New Entrepreneurs Make when they're starting up their businesses. And I want to invite you to sign up for that class. It's free to register. I'll leave the link in the description. So if you're afraid to launch, you don't know where to start, or you don't think you have the skill, you need to take this masterclass. And all you need to do, if you figure out the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, right, and then you don't make those mistakes, you'll be that much further ahead. So I look forward to seeing you in the masterclass. I'll see you in the next video.